Okay, I call the meeting to order. So, good adoption of the agenda.
Did council adopt the agenda?
Yeah. Second. All in favor? All right. Let's see here. So, item number 3, adoption of agenda from the November 3rd meeting, or the minutes, right? From the November
The council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held November 3rd, 2021.
Alrighty, so introduction.
Vote.
Oh, and sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. There's just one item I would like to add to those minutes, and this was emailed to me by the mayor. Item number 3 on page 6 of the minutes there. The mayor noted that under the capital and special projects, that it should actually read paving and seal coating.
Yes.
And yeah, I did mention to her that I'd mentioned or recalled that from the discussion. So yeah, the paving and seal coating, the minutes just say the crack sealing. So
I make the motion that we correct that in the minutes, the error. I second that motion.
In favor?
Motion to approve the agenda, the minute.
Alrighty, so now a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment. In favor? Cool. Alright, I think we got a second on that one, right? Yeah, okay, we're good. Alright, so item number 4, introduction of late items. So we have an introduction of 8.4, which is correspondence from NCLGA regarding membership dues, and item 8.5 of the Christmas ad in the Dawson Creek Mirror, and also to the in-camera or closed agenda as per section 91 G and K of the community charter.
Can I make a motion that we change the agenda to accommodate, do we have to have a motion to change the agenda to put the in-camera at a different time?
You can just make a motion to move to the camera.
Okay.
Second for that?
Second.
Alright, opposed? Carried.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Then yeah, just a motion to move up the in-camera there.
Yep, so Debbie just said.
I just said, no, just move to in camera.
Okay, so we're good to go with the in-camera?
Yeah, we need the motion to move to in camera. This was for the addition of late items.
Okay, so we need a second motion to move the in-camera up.
Yes.
Alright.
Let's do it
Second
that
that
way.
way, alright.
Okay, let's do it that way.
Anybody opposed?
Fumble our way through it.
There we go. We'll get through this, yeah.
Okay, so now we're gonna go to,
Alrighty, item number 5, public hearings, none. Moving on to item 6, delegations, none. Item 7, unfinished business arising from the minutes.
The council received the draft letters that were requested at the November 3rd, 2021 council meeting for approval.
So, second.
Second. Was
Discussion.
Which, hang on, was one of those for the police?
Yeah.
On the RCMP letter in the 3rd paragraph, you have the word of, supposed to be off of.
So the other thing with that letter, the RCMP, I reviewed that, and I just want to double check staffing numbers on that before.
Oh, time off for, sorry.
sorry?
The 3rd paragraph says here, this would account for leave, sick time, time of for vacations. Should say off for vacations? Is that time of? Supposed to be of?
okay, I'm
In the RCMP letter?
the one that's to the RCMP detachment?
That's page 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
Page 14.
14.
Yes.
14. Northern region is, Ministry of Transportation is 13.
Oh, sorry.
But I don't see that phrase. Oh, vacations and time off.
Of for. Shouldn't it say off for vacations?
Time off for vacations.
Up for, yeah, I see that.
Yeah,
Okay, we
yeah,
can, yeah.
just Spelling error.
We'll fix that.
I figured you'd want to
You'll
know.
have to point it out to me because I can't see it. Right, what, am I blind?
Very last paragraph.
Yeah.
Last, or second
I
last
see it
line,
saying
last paragraph.
For
right-hand side of the page,
See, over there's on it.
Okay, it's okay, don't worry about it.
right under the number 25.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, okay.
I have a question. I had a letter request last council meeting for the special needs.
It's still outstanding, Councillor Smith. We need to talk to you about a little bit more information on that. So that was going to come up in the action memo there.
Okay.
So yeah, back to the RCMP letter. I want to confirm the staffing levels before we put numbers in there. I know with my conversation with the detachment commander, I know some of the staffing issues they're facing right now are due to, you know, the RCMP just not having the staffing available. CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe on that note, rather than taking the step of just confirming those numbers, we could reword that paragraph to suggest that the RCMP staff it appropriately to account for leaves and just leave the numbers out of it. Maybe it's not even a good thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, take the numbers out.
Yeah, take the numbers out.
Yeah, because I know a lot of their staffing issue, some of their staffing issue is, you know, people due for promotions and people transferring out as the RCMP move around, and then also due to COVID, they were shut down for a number of months, and which delayed several graduating classes, so that's leading to RCMP shortages throughout the province. And then also right now with what's going on down south, it's not gonna happen
Right,
anytime soon, right? They're gonna be diverted. That power demand, I imagine.
Yeah, okay. So we can fix that typo and we'll just take the assumed numbers right out of it then.
Yeah. Alright, is that the only letter or is the other one? Sam?
Are the rest of the letters okay, or maybe we can start at the first one and work our way through?
Probably a good idea.
Thank you. Is everyone okay with the first letter?
So we'll move back to page 13 for the
12.
pedestrian cost.
Page 12?
Oh, page 12, sorry. Which one's that? City of Ossipee Mayor Council, Canada Day
Canada.
celebrations. Now I imagine this is barring COVID-19 restrictions, depending on what they're gonna be at the time.
Mhm. Is everyone okay with the first letter?
Make a
Yeah.
motion to approve.
Second.
Second. There you go.
There we go. Second letter.
Second.
Yep, page 13.
Yeah, regarding the crosswalk.
Second that one, Marlene, or
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
second?
Alright. Alright, on to page 14 now. There's,
We already
13
discussed
we're
that.
about
Second one. Motion to approve that letter?
Yeah, I think we've already done.
Second?
In favor? Alright. If we didn't do the first time, it's done the second.
With errors and
Yeah.
omissions.
Correct.
Alrighty, the page 15 letter from the retired police chief fire member. The only other thing I'd ask is it possible that we send some sort of appreciation to the member? He was with police fire for a number of years. I don't have the exact years in front of me, but it'd be nice to just send up a certificate commemorating the time that he served the village and thank him for his service. Any objections to that?
Have you guys ever done that in the past, or, yeah? Okay, so that is something that,
We
Yeah.
just did the certificates.
I would second that, yeah.
All right. In favor? Opposed? Cool. Well, I had the opportunity to serve with Calvin, very outstanding individuals. Alrighty, this brings us to page 16. Village police keepers, letter there. Oh, that's the
Recommendation.
The council received the regional airport governance report for discussion.
Do we have a second? Discussion? So is this where we need to look at, I guess, does that come up in new business that we discuss this, or we discuss it now?
Yep.
I would like to make the motion that our representative will go, but will not make any agreements without bringing it back to council.
And have we chosen a representative?
No, but I just said second.
Okay, in favor of choosing a representative and that they bring their decision back to council before they release it, I guess, to the committee?
Yeah.
In favor?
Yeah.
Opposed? All right, I guess the next part of the discussion would be to
Person.
pick who's gonna represent us.
I'd like to throw my hat in for that, I think.
Could we table this to include the mayor at the next meeting, or, you know what I mean, to give everybody a fair,
Yeah,
Yeah, because she could have some background
know what, yeah,
information on this as well, right?
that's
So-
an awesome.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll table that until the next
I'll
meeting.
second her.
In favor? Opposed? Alrighty. So that brings us to, is that all our letters now?
Yep, we're done letters. You're on 8.2 now.
8.2 recommendation. There we
The
go.
council received a report on the old tender fire truck for information and discussion.
Second.
Alright, discussion. So has there been some correspondence from the regional district on what they'd like to see?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. There's been discussions with the regional district. They're certainly willing to entertain sort of a proposal from us, but they're looking to see whether or not council's interested in acquiring the asset at this point. Like any of those acquisitions, council needs to consider, future maintenance costs and so on and so forth. So it's one thing to get an asset, be it a truck in this case, at a discounted price, but then it's something that we're responsible for tires and fuel and oil changes and parts and all of that stuff. The director of Public Works / Fire Chief feels that this would be a good asset for the village for various reasons. Some public works functions, some fire department functions, grass fires, that type of thing, where it's nice to have big capacity or excess capacity of water on site. From a public works standpoint, we can't use it for, watering. Our water truck that we use right now for the summer is a stick shift standard. We're finding that several of the summer students aren't able to drive that. and it's very old. I think it's a 94, if I'm not mistaken. We got it from the district of Chetwynd for like $1,500. So, we're talking about using this new water truck to put a pump on and water the flowers in the various, areas in town. So there's definitely a purpose to it, but the regional district is really looking, for something from council that says, yeah, we'd like to acquire it. What do you guys propose? They're talking internally about whether or not, and I haven't seen a firm response back from them on this yet, as to whether or not it's a form of a donation or some type of sale. So if you guys are interested in it, in motion to that effect, I'll go to the regional district and say, okay, so is this a dollar?
We need to write a letter.
Yeah, is this $1? Is it $2,500? Give us a price and we'll go from there.
Councillor Hubert?
I think it's just one more vehicle that we have to insure and, and I mean, it's very limited in its uses for us.
Yeah, and I'm sure if we needed water, even if we didn't have that truck, if something should come up that had something, water had to be put somewhere, we could use another truck
So
that we already have.
no, I see it as an advantage actually for the village. One, it's going to cut down on maintenance. Having somebody drive a standard that doesn't know how to drive a standard costs quite a bit in function. The other thing is from an emergency planning perspective, it's better to have an asset and not need it, right? They need to not have it. And as the case, I know there's a new fire truck coming to replace the tender for the fire department. But in the case of, say we have a large structural fire, say there's an issue where we can't get water from the city of Dawson Creek, that allows another vehicle to be able to draft water from a secondary water source. It doesn't tie up the primary fire truck. And it also has the advantage that we can use it for public work stuff, so for watering the plants or whatever else we need for water transport. The nice thing with that truck too is with the tank on it, being able to configure the pump, it could potentially be used for other things like sidewalk maintenance and that kind of stuff, or cleaning off signage or that kind of stuff potentially, right? Oh, Councilor Smith first.
I feel if there was an emergency and we needed that as a backup truck, Tom's Lake, Dawson Creek, you know what I mean? But to have an asset that we have to maintain insurance-wise, and that I'm kind
I think too, speaking on the insurance-wise issue as well, what's the difference in cost and insurance to insure a regular vehicle to insuring a fire truck? Do you know what I mean? there has to be a difference in that as well. Like, we already currently have a vehicle. I get that having, you know, learning students driving a standard can get a bit expensive, but at the same time,
Maybe that's part of the training we offer.
that's right, driving a standard's like riding a bike. Once you tend to get it, it sticks. You know what? We're teaching them life skills. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, you know, so I feel the same. I do struggle, you know, while it would be neat, you know, even to, like, have that within the village watering plants. I'm pretty sure the kids would love it. I just don't see it being beneficial in the end. I see it being more cost-worthy than.
So I guess the other question I have is, for the CEO, from a cost perspective, what's the life expectancy left in the old tender versus the old, versus the flat deck they're currently running right now with the tank strapped to the back of it?
Hard to say. You know, I mean, the old flat deck, theoretically speaking, is past its life expectancy. I mean, it's like I say, it's a mid-90s, somewhere in that. But you know, that particular unit, we only use it for 3-4 months in the summer, and we park it. So, you know, this particular fire truck, that's part of what the PRRD had indicated to me they were going to do. They were going to send somebody out and assess it from a value standpoint. So somebody that's in that fire truck appraisal sort of gig, yeah, I know nothing about that. But you know, just for purposes of this discussion, to decide, well, is that a $25,000 unit or is it worth $2,500? And we just don't know.
The wheelbases on those are two different things. Your flatbed with the water is total different wheelbase
Oh,
than
yeah.
a fire truck. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
It-
to get in, to put water plants or whatever, it's easy to get in there with the flatbed with the tank on the back versus,
It's a big unit for sure, Councillor Smith. You know, and as much as the summer students are struggling, you know, or some of them anyways, struggling to drive standard, putting somebody in a big honking truck like that might be intimidating for you know, so there's that consideration as well. But the discussion on both sides of it's valid. It's really up to you guys. Is there an operational things that we could do with it? Absolutely, without a doubt. Are we looking at taking on an older piece of equipment that has some maintenance, upkeep, insurance costs? Also, absolutely. The Director of Public Works and I have agreed that if this moves forward and something major on this unit goes, transmission, differential, engine, and you know, oops, this is a $10,000 repair bill, probably going to recommend the council we mothball it and just dispose of it. But having said that, you know, if it's offered from the PRRD at a really low cost or $1, you know, are there things we can do with it in the meantime till it runs out its life and blows up? Sure. So it's a toss-up, guys. It's whatever you want to do with it.
Councilor Hick?
With these retired fire trucks, don't they sell them, and usually communities that
Eris,
can't
Thompson.
afford newer vehicles, don't they purchase those? Yeah,
CEO?
Mr. Chair, thanks. So that's come up, and I asked the PRRD director that question specifically. So if we move to acquire this, are we actually taking something away from small potatoes fire that could really use it? The answer was no, not at this time. She also spoke about a little bit of legality with that stuff lately, that it you know, but that process is no longer as cut and dry as it used to be. So the answer wasn't, are we taking something away that somebody needs more desperately than us right now? Because we're really, what this initiative boils down to is, hey, there's potentially a deal on this thing, and we're going to find some things we can do with it. Which is, do we need this asset right now to you know, it's not mission critical to bring this on board. It looks like a deal, we can do some stuff with it, and I did take that step of confirming that, you know, if we take this, we're not going to actually cause somebody other operational issues. The answer is no.
Councilor Hick?
and do we still have the other fire trucks sitting in the, yeah.
Everything's as is until we receive the new one.
So the other question I have is, with this truck, say we do decide to go forward with it, If we did acquire it, is it something that we can sell off later, or we're prohibited from selling the truck later on down the road to say another to a fire department or a community that's in need?
Yeah, council's at liberty to dispose of any village assets as you see fit. So, yeah, answered 100%. Yeah.
But if a fire department is not in need of it now, after it gets another 5 years, there isn't gonna be another fire department that will need a worn out fire truck.
Councillor
So
Beach?
my understanding is that we do, like, we're already currently fine. Our truck that we have with our watering system and everything other than the students can't drive it is fine. Everything's working great. We would just be sort of adding this on as maybe another cheap available asset, but it's not potentially a need.
No, like I said, this isn't something, you know, like when I came to council, you guys wouldn't remember that, but when I came to council, you know, a couple of years ago and said our grader is on its last legs, we absolutely need something to plow the streets or we're not meeting our objectives to the community. That was yep, we gotta spend the money to do this now. This unit is, hey, it's cheap, we can make it work. If you guys are okay buying it, we'll find something to do with it for sure. But the director certainly hasn't come to me and said, without this thing, I can't no.
So would it be something to put a letter, say, please find out how much they want for it first, and then we can bring it back and make a decision from there once we know what they want for a price? Or is it something we want to just pass on?
I think even if they said it was worth $1, even if we gave them $1, we would still be spending money on insurance and we would still be, right? Like it would still be something that we would have to pay money on right away to maintain, to insure. So at this point in time, you know, while I think it's a great opportunity, it was kind of them to think about this offer to us, it has no benefit towards the village or our community members.
Councillor Smith?
Is there another organization that, maybe not a fire department, that would benefit with that?
To my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, CEO, the regional district is limited to who they can sell that truck to or who they can go to for an organization. Where I think if it was an asset we acquired and later on down the road we decide that it doesn't suit our needs, we're not as restricted to being able to
I understand
move that
that.
asset.
Pretty close. The conversation that I had with the director over there was that they've been made aware that they can't necessarily donate the assets, but I understand regional districts like us could just put it out there on Kijiji and then sell it or by tender or however they do it, just like.
Because I'm thinking Moberly Lake Fire Department, or, you know, some little Kelly Lake. Like, you know what I mean? Have we looked at all those?
Well,
Or
and to that end, Councillor Smith, yeah, it wouldn't be up to us. I mean, really,
No.
council's decision is, do we want to take this thing on, appreciating there's some costs, and do the costs justify the benefits it's going to provide? You know, and if not, then regional district, appreciate the offer, but it's not something we need at this time, and best of luck with it.
Councillor Hubert?
I make a motion that we decline.
I second. Just a
All
second
right,
there.
all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Alrighty, this brings us to item number 8.3, recommendation 8.3. Council received a preliminary, I can't pronounce this word tonight, preliminary 2020 to 2026 fire department budget. Do I have a motion that we accept that? Or discussion?
Discussion. I'll make
How about a
motion.
second?
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, yes, I have a second. I'll make the motion.
Is it your turn there, Councillor Hebert?
All right, so fire department budget. So to my understanding, the regional district was wanting us a little early for future planning. Is that the correct assumption? Stephen?
Not necessarily. The regional district's budget timeline is slightly more accelerated than municipalities. They operate off the Local Government Act. We're in the community charter, so regional districts have to have their budgets done by March 31st of any given year, whereas we have until May. So this isn't the first time they've come to us with this request, and basically we're just trying to help out our funding partners and get them the numbers a little quicker than we would need them internally ourselves. So, November 30th is a little tight. I was able to negotiate a date out into December. So really what that does is allow the, first presentation here, you guys can discuss the numbers, see what you think. I'll bring it back on the December 1st meeting, and if council is okay with those revised numbers, up, down, sideways, whatever those are, I can then present those to the regional district. And I bought us a couple of days so that I could, put a report and a letter together and everything with it. But not much really in terms of changes with the fire department budget. It's been pretty constant over the last couple of years anyways. There are increases as noted in the report, and I basically just built those in knowing the operating environment we're in right now with COVID and supply shortages and delays and cost increases and stuff. So I really only made changes to 3 of the sections in terms of an input increase, and those are the maintenance and repairs budget for the hull, and increase the fire truck operating budget to 18,000, considering fuel cost increases and insurance increases and those types of things, and then an increase to the minor capital budget, which is all of the small tools and equipment essentially that the fire department buys and uses annually. So, and the rest of the stuff as noted. Most of the budget spreadsheets I work with, I've got sort of a 2% placeholder in there, so everything gets 2% more expensive from one year to the other to account for standard inflation, and the rest of it is in there. So what that does is create an overall departmental increase of about 17,000, give or take, over the prior year.
Councillor Smith?
Okay, so $270,163 is the budget for 2022. Now, is that the amount that the village will pay? The total amount, $270,163?
No. The village receives a grant from the regional district equivalent to just over 34%.
I don't want percentage.
Yeah.
I want
Okay, let me get you
the
that.
actual money, no more percentage, yeah.
Bear with me here. So 270 times 0.34. This year, assuming council approves this budget and it's also approved at the regional district level, we'd be looking at funding of right around 91,800. Ballpark. So if we subtract that, the 270 we're paying, that means that the village's portion of the fire department budget would be about 178,000.
You just,
Okay, so there's 2 parties that pay, into the, and that's part of the reason we're submitting this early, is so that the regional district can approve it in their tighter budget timeline. The agreement between the village and the regional district has the regional district pay us in a lump sum grant 34.3, but don't quote me on the decimal. It's 34% of the budget that we submit and that they approve. So at 270,000, just to use round numbers, if the regional district also approves this budget, we would be looking at receiving $91,800 from the regional district. So if we subtract the 91,000 from the 270, that leaves us with about $178,000 of costs. So the net effect to the village after we receive the grant is about $178,000.
Councillor Snow? No, sorry, Councillor Hubert.
So the first responders that are in there, they're not listed in here. But do they have a separate budget from this?
No, the first responders are a function of the overall fire hall, so they're not separate and apart from the operations of the fire hall. Some of the fire volunteers are trained and qualified as first responders. So they sort of provide that function off of the, as an additional benefit. But we don't separate out the first responder piece versus the fire piece for budget purposes. We do list it separately in the fire chief's report, so he'll list fire versus medical.
And how much is that added on?
It's not, so the first
It's
response.
absorbed in this amount?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, you can actually see the fire medical supplies is budgeted at like 520 for the 2022 year, which for medical supplies wise is actually relatively conservative, so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And the beauty of that is we get lots of donations of medical supplies from area partners. It's not uncommon for the fire department to go to a first responder medical call and then the ambulance to arrive later, and the ambulance attendants to say, oh, you guys use some stuff, great, here's a box of Band-Aids, gloves. We'll replace the things we use. So we've been able to keep that portion of it low. We don't, on the medical stuff we respond to, it is what it is. But yeah, part of the reason that's abnormally low is that, the other area partners definitely help us out with some of the equipment and usables that we go through.
Councilor Reach?
I just would kind of like to say that, so looking at this budget for this year of 270, I know that you said that we could get 91,800 from the regional district within grants and stuff, but this increase of $17,000 almost is on our tiny little village, almost $20,000 increase. Like I know myself, I looked at that and went, oh wow, because we are only a village of less than 800 people, and that's a $17,000 increase. And I was definitely thinking, our residential numbers haven't really grown exponentially in the past, decade, I'd say, and so it's these big jumps where our numbers are continuously staying the same for our residents and our tax incomes, but our budgeted amounts are going up and up and up, and especially when it's these big jumps that I definitely find a bit concerning for our members to take another $17,000 hit. I know in the scheme of things, when looking at all these numbers, you're only adding slight increases here and there, for maintenance and for fuel but it does equivalent to a $17,000 jump when our resident numbers haven't really changed much. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
Yep. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Definitely, Councillor Veach, and the incumbent members will speak to this. The fire department budget has been an item of intense discussion amongst council for years. These are big, expensive services. Fire departments aren't cheap to operate. And the issue is, and this was definitely a topic of discussion amongst council last year, is not only are the apparatuses inexpensive, the halls are expensive, everything about fire services has big numbers attached to it. The breathing apparatus, for example, the SCBAs that the staff use are like $12,000 a piece. And the director right now is looking at basically a glorified dishwasher to wash these things, and it's like $25,000, and that's to decontaminate them and make them safe for the people that wear them. These volunteers go into very toxic and life-threatening scenarios, and it's one thing to hand somebody a $12,000 breathing apparatus, but if you don't clean it in between jobs, it's covered in toxic. So it's one of these things that the village offers that service as a service that we do, and unfortunately that's got some dollars attached to it. But I don't disagree with you.
I definitely don't want to diminish what these gentlemen are doing for sure. I just find that the big thing you often hear is that our fire department brings down our house insurance, and they are doing amazing work over there, but at the same time, when does our home insurance and the amount we're paying start
Good.
See ya.
Good question. A long, long way out. We actually looked at that last year, and if I remember correctly, the house insurance would close to triple. If the, just off the top of my head. So it's one of those things where the residents would pay for the fire services through taxation to a certain extent, or insurance costs would go up. The thing with the fire hall budget, and you'll see this in the rest of the budget too, a lot of what the village does is actually fixed expenses, right? So we go through this list, well, the honorariums for the fire department members are set by bylaw. That is what it is. The benefits associated with those set by bylaw. The director's wage is, or the fire chief's wage is the fire chief's wage. We keep going down that. Well, the insurance line is insurance. We can't alter that. The fire truck insurance for the PRRD, fixed. The fire alarm system for the building, fixed cost. The computer costs, well, we gotta have computers there, that's a fixed cost. And if we go through each line of that individually, as we sometimes do with the other budgets, what starts to become apparent is the sum of the parts is a big, difficult pill to swallow. But at the end of the day, the irony of it is we present these budgets to council for your approval and your discussion, but there's only like 3 or 4 lines in this thing that can actually be changed.
be moved.
Council can't tell me, you could, but it'd be, let's change the computer costs. We don't want to spend 20 grand on computers, we only want to spend 10. Great. Well, now the director is going to come to me and say, I don't have a computer to fill out my reports. How do we operate? So it unfortunately becomes, once we adopt that service, this is just what it's going to be. And similarly with the fuel, council could direct me that no, Chris, that we want the fuel budget to stay the same as last year. Technically what that means is once the fire trucks use up to that fuel for next year, I've got to direct the director to stop attending emergencies because I don't have a budget for fuel anymore. I have to come back to you guys and say, hey, we need an approval.
So the only other thing too is
Point of order, I'd like to make a motion that we move back past 9 o'clock.
Second.
Right, so the other thing too is council might not be aware of is that the province right now is in the process of bringing out a new playbook. So it's the new firefighter standards that they have to meet in order to be maintain the standard as a fire department that we enjoy our benefit of getting home insurance discounts off and be actually certified as a proper fire department. So there has been some changes that have been made to that, and that should be coming out here in the next little while. I don't know the exact date. So part of that budget increase, and correct me if I'm wrong, is also to accommodate for some of that?
No,
or?
not really for this year, Mr. Chair. And that new playbook that you're talking about, to my knowledge, it hasn't been adopted yet. So we're likely to see those costs and those requirements in next year's budget and beyond. What I do understand is with that new playbook is that it's not going to be A to Z overnight. So that the fire associations recognize that these are costly services for municipalities. So when those rules and guidelines change, and I understand they're going to be deep and profound in terms of equipment and training, and for example, one of them I understand is going to be every member of the fire hall is required to have 2 complete sets of bunker gear, because these things are contaminated when they go out to a fire site. And if there's 2 calls back to back, we from a safety standpoint of the individual, we can't ask somebody to go put on the same gear that's contaminated with carcinogenic debris from the night before. They got to put on something clean. So the bunker gear is $4,000 a piece. It is what it is, and that comes back to that conversation where we've adopted this service. Unfortunately, now that means we got to supply gear, we got to supply fuel, we got to put tires on the trucks, all of that stuff. And it equates the sum of the parts. Each one of these lines in itself is not particularly scary or costly, but you add up enough $10,000 line items and you get to $270,000 pretty quick.
Councilor Hubert?
So, yeah, we know that the fire department, it costs money. So the audit that they had, it isn't in here, and that was a cost for the fire department, wasn't it?
That was on the capital and special projects list.
Yeah, and so it's above and beyond this. And that audit was required for every volunteer fire department in British Columbia?
No, we proposed that audit to council last year to see if we were actually on the right track with respect to the department. Because there'd been so much, discussion about the fire department, what we were doing and how we were operating, and are the costs in line, and are we doing things that we shouldn't be doing, thus incurring costs on the budget. We proposed that audit to you guys to say, let's have an outside professional come in and evaluate what we're doing. Are we on the right track? Are we overstaffed? Are we over-equipped for a village fire department our size? And it was really to help council understand, is this number of 270 or last year's number realistic, or are we doing something wrong? Can we actually reduce that? From what I understand, you guys might not want to hear this, the report is actually going to recommend that there's certain things we need to up our game on.
For a volunteer fire
For a
department?
volunteer fire department, yeah.
So if I went to Nassau, it would be the same kind of fire department there that we have here?
No, not necessarily. It'd be up to the council to determine the level of service. What I can tell you, as an example from information from last year, is that I understand the Charlie Lake Fire Department is very similar in size and scope to ours, similar buildings, similar apparatus. And in discussions with the PRRD, that facility, I believe, is in the neighborhood of $700,000 a year. And we're providing something close, from what I understand, for a third of that.
How in the world can a community the size of Charlie Lake,
They have more residents.
what? They have more residents than us? They cover more area.
That I don't know, but that's because last year when we asked, when the questions started coming up, I did go to the Protective Services Director, might be getting her title slightly wrong, but and say, help me understand this. Where are we in terms of the region? And the response I got back was the level that Pustkupi is providing for the kind of dollars we're actually expending on it is extremely good value for money. And other departments that are providing similar manpower, people power, equipment, services, response times. I mean, we answer 100 calls for service a year and we're at 270 grand. So long story short, I won't belabor that too much, but and I could bring that information back to council, but we are, believe it or not, one of the cheapest operating departments in the entire region.
Then we'll keep it that way.
Right? That's okay.
I make a motion.
Quick question on that then. So do we have other does what community, Tom's Lake and all that, they don't have a fire department and are reliant on our fire department? No?
No. Tom's Lake has a volunteer fire department, and we have a mutual aid agreement with Tom's Lake through the PRRD. So emergency services, just talking about the last water truck item, if something blows up bad in Poos and it exceeds our capacity to respond, we reach out to Tom's Lake. Send us whoever you have to help us out, and the reverse also holds true as well. So, yeah.
Councillor Smith?
I don't know how long we can sustain this. I really don't. I think maybe we have to evaluate what services our fire department provides, because this just goes up. As Councillor Beach says, what I mean, for 800 residents. And what I find frustrating is if you say this has to be approved, right? So if we don't approve it, they think we're down on our fire department. We're not down on our fire department. We as a council handle the purse strings. And you know what I mean? I don't drive a Rolls Royce and go to Vegas every second weekend. My budget doesn't allow me to do that. And that's what I'm looking at. We have an awesome fire department that have, they went above and beyond. But the value, the money that we're spending on our fire department is not capital. It's not infrastructure. And so, you know what I mean? Maybe we have to take it to our residents and say, you know what I mean? Do you want us to keep spending all this money? Like, I don't know.
My big concern too, and I'd expected to hear more about it, but there wasn't much talk in the community. But last year you put out a letter talking about how much money we make from our residents versus how much money we are reliant on from other grants and things, right? And it's when it comes to these costs of fire departments, we already have a village that is reliant on grants and things to run. And now, you know, $270,000 is over half of the amount of money we just make in taxes a year. And I think that that's the bit that the residents, some of them are unaware of, is that $270,000 is like 3/4 of what we make in our taxes from residents. That's not including all the other things that we have within the village. And I think that's where my concern is. I'm the same as Barb. I think our fire department is great. I think the guys out there are wonderful and they do an amazing job. And I'm not saying we need to get rid of that, get rid of this. I'm just saying that there's a big question mark up there right now that's not really being figured out. Because these prices, like these costs are going up and up and up. But we're not a village that's exponentially growing year by year. And the fact that our taxpayer dollars right now could only run our village, I think in your letter you said, what, 3 months?
Yeah, not even, about the middle of February.
So if we didn't apply for any grants, our tax-paying dollars could only run our village till February. And these costs are going up. And I know it's difficult to solve that issue, but at the same time, that's an issue that I just feel like we don't really solve. It's like a question mark that's just floating there. And it's when these things are going up and up that I'm sitting there going, holy macaroni, now we can only afford to go to January 3rd. You know, like it's that.
See you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, both Councillor Smith's thoughts on this and yours, Councillor Leach, actually tie in to the same notion. Councils in general, focusing on budget items, look at the expenses. And it's often a very one-sided discussion in terms of, well, how do we make this sustainable? Well, we cut costs. From an accounting standpoint, expenses are only one side of your income statement, right? And you know, the question is not necessarily how do we force the market to make the fire department cheaper for us. We can't go to the insurance company and demand this rate. We can't go to the fuel stations and say, well, we're a fire department, so the diesel that goes into our trucks, we're going to pay this for it, right? Because it's expensive. What is often overlooked is the revenue side of that equation. And taxes are one way to do it. But with the fire department, there's also a number of other ways that revenue could be generated. And if you know, in the business world, I think you know where I'm going with this, Barb.
Yeah.
You know, if an individual runs a business and you say, well, it costs me this much to produce my widgets, here's what I got to sell them for. Right? And I've got two choices to make my business sustainable. Find somebody that'll produce that widget cheaper for me, or charge enough for my widget or create the revenue I need to cover my expenses and keep myself afloat. So with the fire department, what we've looked at, what we've focused on for years and years and years is expenses. We haven't actually had much of a conversation about, well, how do we get the fire department generating some revenue to offset some of these costs? There has been a brief discussion about that last year, you know, and I won't go into that now. But you know, the hard pill to swallow is this is what it costs. And council could direct me, well, you know, Chris, no, let's make the minor capital the same as it was last year. Okay, we save $5,000 on $270,000. Is that a big savings? No, but everybody can go home at night thinking, well, we saved a little bit of money. But again, at the end of the day, there's not much massaging we can do in those numbers to actually make this cheaper. What I believe council needs to look at, and the only way the village is going to get to sustainability is that we start having some deep revenue conversations. What can we do as an organization to get money coming in to cover some of the costs of this stuff? Because
partner up. Partner up.
partner up. Well, the Canada Day letter was one way of doing that. With this, and we already do partner. I mean, the regional district is extremely generous with the funding they provide to the fire department. But we had
That's what I was thinking of Tom's Lake.
well, and then same thing. Does that just become a two-way check? Right. Oh, Tom's Lake, we want you to partner with us for the services you provide. Tom's Lake's just going to turn around and say, oh, you use us sometimes too, so just hand half of that back.
Yeah.
I think we need to evaluate our service. You know what I mean? Our fire department.
Well, from the
Because
sound
they
of
have
things-
brought their standards up. This is, as a layman, I'm not a fire department person, I don't know. But they brought those standards up to be equal to Charlie Lake or whatever. But they're not equal to Eris or Tom's Lake. They have a different thing. Our fire department used to be equivalent to Tom's Lake, to Eris years ago. And we have had fire departments that, well, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to provide this, we want to provide that. And that's wonderful for our residents. But do we go back to our residents and say, that's taken more than half of our tax dollars for our fire department? Like, it's something that we have to look at.
So there's a couple things with fire departments, because we mentioned different communities in the area. I don't know the exact ins and outs, but there's different classifications of fire departments for what qualifications they need to meet, and depending on what class of fire department you are, dictates on your homeowner's insurance how much you save.
That's
Right, and then also the level of response that we can provide. The other thing is at the end of the day, like we added, the first responder aspect to it, got added in 2014, 2015 to the fire department. And since then, they've done numerous calls and saved numerous lives of numerous residents within the community, right? And it's one of those things that, what's our alternative though, right? What's our alternative? We have this number, this is prospective numbers, they're hard numbers for the most part. And the thing is, so what's our alternative? If we start going now, relying on Dawson Creek to come in and put out fires for us, now there's a cost that we have to pay them if they're even available, right? Because if they've got a crew that they're already going there, now we've got loss of property, we've got loss of damage, response times are even longer. To call in Tom's Lake, which is also volunteer, right? There's going to be costs involved with that, and also the increased response time of ambulance because we don't have people readily available.
These people come from Dawson Creek. They bring south to Scoopy to do this job.
So
There is no time difference.
actually, there is, because you think the members up in Tom's Lake, most of them work in Dawson Creek as well. So now if we're calling members from Tom's Lake, they've got to come from Dawson Creek all the way up to Tom's Lake, grab the fire truck and come all the way back to Scoopy. Right, when we have our members, and a good chunk of our members do live in Dawson Creek, and we do have a few that live in Poos now. We have enough members that live in Poos that if they're home, they can respond fairly quickly. You need a certain number of people on the truck. Going to Dawson, the thing is, the difference is even though a lot of our members do come from Dawson, they're volunteer. They don't cost us anything up front for wages. Where if we're calling Dawson Creek, well, now we're pulling assets away from Dawson Creek, putting Dawson Creek at risk. We're also now incurring the cost because those are professional paid firefighters that are coming out, right? And I can guarantee that any municipality or any organization that lends out their members or puts out their people, it comes with a price, and there's usually a little more added to that on top of just what their normal cost would be. Right, and I'm pretty sure if we were to crunch numbers and look at it, the cost of having a fire truck come from Dawson Creek out to here significantly, offsets the, isn't a savings to us. It'll actually end up costing us more money in the long run. Plus, there's also liability issues with it as well. Plus, the thing is, with new construction of homes, they actually find that newer homes burn faster than what older legacy homes do. So being able to have that quicker response time to prevent that fire from moving on to another building is, to save the infrastructure in the village is phenomenal, because some of these new buildings that they're building, within a 5-minute span, 10-minute span, a good chunk of the houses engulfed in flame, where you get some of these older buildings that we have a mix of in town, they can actually burn for a little bit longer because of their materials. So we want a fire department that can respond quickly. And if we have the reliance on the city of Dawson Creek and they're already on a fire, we're not gonna get them, right? We're second priority compared to the residents of Dawson Creek that are paying for their fire department. With having our own fire department and our own first responders, it greatly increases the, availability for those members for the community, right? Councilor Hugh?
I make a motion that we accept this budget.
I'll second that. All in favor?
No?
This is just discussion, we're bringing it.
Oh, it's
on
the
first
discussion.
We'll bring it, yeah.
Table it?
Oh,
Oh.
No, it's not a table, it's just you're receiving it for.
Okay,
Oh,
receiving this for
discussion.
information, there you go.
All right.
It's a good discussion, thank you, and I just do want to say that our fire department is excellent, they go above and beyond. It's not anything negative with our fire department, but, yeah.
We gotta take that into account with our residents, yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so this brings us on to chorus
8.4,
or 8.4, 8.4.
late item.
Hopefully
Yes.
item 8.4, yes, 8.4 and 8.5. So 8.4, the recommendation that we adopt 8.4 for discussion.
I'll second.
Alright.
So, do we
Benefit?
well, yes, there is that question too. So we're just also taking this in for discussion, or are we voting on this today? Like, I was very confused by the whole voting thing, because we were emailed about this, then we were individually, given our own individual code, and so I'm sitting there going do we vote as a council on this? Do we vote individually?
You each get a separate vote.
Did you get a separate email from NCLGA
Yes.
yourselves in your email boxes?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so that wasn't from me.
No, that was specifically from them. And so it looked like it was an individual vote.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they sent it out to each individual person.
each individual person was my understanding. And then each individual person voted. And then, yeah.
Councilor Smith?
The NCLGA was all by Zoom this year because of COVID. So what they've done is reached out to paid members to ask your vote for people to be on the board. And that's probably, what the vote is. But what this letter is here is membership, current membership, and proposed new membership fees. And my thoughts, NCLGA, I'm frustrated because that is if we have any resolutions, let's say we decided to do a resolution, it would be taken up with the NCLGA. We would bring that forward to NCLGA. And then they take it forward to us to UBCM. And LCJ is mainly rural. I want to know what the benefits are, because what are we accomplishing? That's a lot of money to spend for memberships. $800. I'll keep my mouth shut. It's a lot of money. But we should participate.
Councilor Reach?
So on the email that I received, it was to vote on this current membership fee structure. So what it was is I got a link, I clicked on the link, it had a password and stuff for me to enter, I entered it and it had my individual name on it. And then it was just voting for which structure I think is most affordable or which is best. I did vote on it. I apologize. I didn't see us spending any money, so I didn't see it as a thing that we would vote on with council, so I apologize if I did that incorrectly. At this point in time, they're just asking us which.
Our feedback, yeah.
Our
which one-
feedback, yeah, so I did vote individually myself on that feedback, I just want to put that out there. I apologize if
No,
I
no.
did that incorrectly. But yeah, my understanding is, yeah, we are just currently voting on, the fee structure. Looking at this, like, we are a very small community, so we are under that 1,500,
Threshold.
population. So, you know, for us, there's not much of, it's not really a huge change. It'd be much larger for like a larger community for sure. But yeah, other than like what I've read in my emails in regards to these people in the past few weeks, I don't really have much information, but yeah, that's just going off of our, like the fee structure. You know, for us, there's really not much of a change because we don't meet their 1,500 population thing, so there would really be no increase for us, so.
Is this just for information? Okay.
All right, moving on to 8.5. That is the ad for the newspaper, yeah, for the Dawson Creek here. Sam?
This was sent to me, because I had to place an ad for our meeting schedule. We've never done this before. This is something new. So basically what she did was she drafted up an ad for us without us asking. She just drafted it up for us. And then they've given us 2 price sheets. One is to go in their annual greetings issue. And then the other price sheet is for the Christmas songbook that they put out yearly. And basically they're asking us if we want to advertise in this book. So that's all it is. And basically I just would like to know if council would like to do it or not.
Councilor Smith?
My thoughts are, we don't need to say Merry Christmas in a paper. I'd rather take that money that we pay for advertising and donate it to the food bank or something else. I just received this for information.
Councilor Reach?
Don't we put something out in the Village Voice? Like, that's basically our community newspaper.
We do the Village Voice, we do the Christmas cards to
Yeah.
the businesses or whatever, and we put it on our Facebook and our website.
Yeah, I don't
We
see
say
this-
Merry Christmas.
This isn't a need, I would say, no.
Can I just get a motion to not?
I motion to not move forward with,
Receive this as information.
yeah, receiving it.
Do I have a second? Second. In favor? All right. Well, it's like just click the ad.
Yeah, very fancy, beautifully done.
Yeah, you just click that up, put it in the Village Voice. Thank the mayor for their work.
I think one of our admins might be a little offended if she didn't get to create it herself.
Here's an example.
I'll let you like you haven't seen mine.
Alrighty, moving on to correspondence, 9.1. So do we make a motion for the correspondence, or do we just, if anybody's got any concerns with it?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, council's at liberty to just lump these all in together for information unless you want to discuss it specifically.
Right, anything in particular anybody wants to discuss with our communications or correspondence? All right, hearing none. Moving on to item, where did it put me this? Item 10, is it? No, resolutions, none. Item 11, bylaws, none. Administrative reports, 12.12, CA report. Alright. See you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two quick items I'd like to add in addition to what was there and bubbled up in the last couple of days. One is I've had a conversation with the director of Public Works / Fire Chief about potential disaster assistance from the communities down south. There is a willingness from a couple of members on the fire department to, perhaps go down, or an availability, I guess. Not too sure what that would look like at this point yet, but the director did suggest that maybe some type of food drive or something like that might be appropriate. He'd suggested that a lot of the calls for resources that are happening down south are people with water or water rescue credentials, and our fire department members don't really have that, but there is a volunteer member with a large pickup truck and a trailer who sort of said if the community would like to engage in some type of food drive, that they may be willing to drive that down there.
Which community would you pick?
Well, that's
Merritt, Abbotsford.
so. Yeah, part of the discussion was I was even asking the director is everything that's happening down south right now even centralized from an emergency operations standpoint, and we just don't know. So, just bring it up for what it's worth, and that we are having discussions internally about, geez, how can we help? Council.
They did have it on the news today, they didn't want people bringing stuff to the emergency things like water and groceries and blankets and that. They don't want any of that because they have no way to disperse it.
Okay.
If they need something, they would reach out. I think that you could reach out to the provincial thing. It'd be nice if they could reach out and say, what do you need? Maybe it's not this week, but it might be a couple of weeks down the line.
Yeah.
So I just suggest that for that, if we want to make a contribution, I'd suggest reaching out to the Canadian Red Cross or the Salvation Army. They tend to handle a lot of the relief efforts when it comes to the displaced individuals or the evacuees.
Okay.
And then the branch of the government for that is Emergency Management British Columbia. So we reach out to on that end. But for donating goods and services, it's one of those things. Provincial government has a provincial asset list, and they'll work their way down the list systematically depending on what they need for the situation. But financial contribution is probably the best aid we can give at this point in time to a reputable charitable organization like the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, so those funds directly go to the communities and individuals that need them. Okay. Councillor Beach.
I just want to put this out there for us individuals and for the community. When it comes to collecting food donations for down there, just also be aware around here, people are beginning to panic buy and shelves are becoming empty. They have multiple grocery stores in Fort St. John have no food in them. And people are beginning to panic buy food. Mm-hmm. And this is very difficult for families that live off of food stamps or assistance and only get paid once a month. Because when those people go to grocery shop, there is no food left in the stores. This was a huge issue last year during the whole COVID shutdown, I guess over a year ago now.
The toilet paper.
And the toilet paper was a comical problem, but the food was a real problem. And people are beginning to stress that there's not going to be enough food due to the cutoff from down south. So panic buying has begun. I know Grand Prairie Costco lineups were around the building yesterday. And as I said, for families that live on assistance, this is about to put them in a very dangerous situation. And with Christmas coming. And so while I agree I would love to be able to assist people down there, we also need to be aware of our families in our community that could be horribly affected by people panic buying. Our food bank may need to make sure that they are reaching out to those vulnerable families to make sure that they're not in a situation where they're walking into Walmart at the end of the month finally able to purchase their groceries and there are none. That was a really big issue last time.
Yeah, so the provincial and federal governments have actually said, it was on the news today, that it won't, for northeastern BC and basically everything north of Hope, it's not going to affect it's not gonna have any major effects on our food supply and our food chains, because a good chunk of our stuff up here comes from the Alberta side of the border.
And people are not listening to
Right, and
that.
that's the thing, right? And they're currently sending the military down with the, to open up those routes and that kind of stuff, so.
Well, just be aware that that could be something that does affect our community members, as it did last time, so.
See you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just one more verbal thing in my report there, and it's regarding the house light up contest. There was a discussion amongst staff today, and we just wanted to confirm there's that repeat winners are okay in the house lighting contest. There was just some uncertainty amongst the staff that if somebody won last year, that they're not precluded from it this year, right?
We had this discussion.
Yeah, I know, and
And
it wasn't, it wasn't,
Councillor Beach asked for a list of previous winners.
yeah.
We have that list minus names, it's just the addresses, and we have that for the last 3 years. Now, as I said to them at the front, it's up to it's council's discretion, who's winning, who's not.
I'd like to see it spread out.
Well,
And
my
yes,
thing with that is if it's the same house winning each year with the same decorations, you know what I mean? Like
Okay, sorry, I have no pictures for you.
you know, but if you're just putting up the same setup, then yeah, I would definitely like to see it spread out amongst the community myself as well. I don't want to discriminate against anybody, just because, if you won 3 years ago and you're winning this year, that's different from you won last year and the year before and I definitely want everybody to have the opportunity, because frankly, if it's going to be the same house year in and year out, nobody's going to want to take part. And this is something to engage our community. So that's how I'm going to be judging.
That's more a judging thing.
Yeah.
Than really we're putting it in policy that if you won last year, you can't win.
No, yeah.
Okay,
We've
very
never
good.
done that.
Yep.
Okay, Councillor Huber?
Looking through your report here, Mr. Leggett. You mentioned that the health and safety manual, and when we voted on this, it was rather a quick thing that went through, and it wasn't necessarily that we agreed with it, but it was said that we had to put it through. And when I read through it, I found that it wasn't geared for a municipality, and it included our fire department as staff. I have the same concerns as what the staff do reading through that.
Yes.
So what can we do to rectify this?
So that's, sorry, Mr. Chair. So that's part of what I'm going to be bringing back to council once we've really had some more discussion on it. And as I mentioned in the report, we're basically only 45 pages into it, and it's at the point now where we really can't even manage what's required in the first 45 pages, let alone the rest. So I've actually directed staff to, okay, full stop, before we all go and read 290 pages of this and try and digest it. And we're going to have a staff discussion about one or two options, And fortunately, the motion from council was good in that it was adopt the manual, and if staff have any amendments you need to make, bring it back to us and do that. So, because I don't disagree, the timeline on how this was implemented appears extremely hasty. So, is what it is. But we're at the point now where I need to make a decision administratively as to whether or not I chip away at the manual section by section, paragraph by paragraph, and try and rewrite it to suit us, or actually put a recommendation in front of council that we just go and get another one. Because it trying to undo, that work, and I'm not a safety expert by any means. So it's going to be difficult for us to make just the amendments we've seen in the first 45 pages. And I'm not discounting or saying that this wasn't written by a safety professional, not by any means.
I have no idea.
But, and the firm that wrote it is a legitimate firm, and they've got an individual and so on and so forth. But to your point, and what we're seeing is it doesn't really appear to be tailored to a municipality. It seems to be more industry specific.
Yeah.
You know, so I need to do some more research and investigation into that. Well, not really investigation, but just trying to figure out in my own mind, okay, do we commit to trying to rewrite this to tailor it for us now, or is the best time to just, no, full stop, and we'll reach out to a couple of other communities and say, you know, can you know, give us some assistance on a manual that's actually municipally specific.
Councillor Reach.
So myself and Councillor Whittle weren't part of the council when this was sort of adopted and talked about. This manual, was this so this isn't a manual that was adopted by other municipalities?
No.
Is there a manual that's normally adopted by other municipalities that you know of?
Well, and that's what I'm going to look into. You know, a lot of the policies, bylaws, things that happen in municipalities tend to be shared amongst municipalities. So, you know, in fact, a lot of our bylaws and policies are exactly that. In our research project, well, we need a policy that addresses this. Well, let's get some examples from 3-4 other communities, massage some of it. Well, we've already got a policy. Plagiarism doesn't exist in municipalities because we're public bodies. With this, yeah, we're not 100% sure. You know, so, yeah, Mrs. Stokes?
I did reach out to 2 separate communities and asked if they had this type of manual for their staff in the office and around, and I was told by the 2 separate that one, yes, they did have a manual, but one community it was 34 pages, the other community it was 86 pages, not 290 pages.
And further to that too, I mean, I've even had a couple of conversations with some of the other Peace Region CAOs, for example, talking about some of the requirements in here for specific. And again, this is where I'm struggling, because again, this was done by a professional firm. So I'm basically just trying to get a sense of not whether or not they were wrong in the recommendations, but is this accepted practice in municipalities? So for example, one of the things that came out of this report was that our administrative staff are required to have hard hat and fall protection. Well, there doesn't appear to be another municipality that I've been able to find in BC that has clerical front counter staff taking fall protection. You know, are we all missing something? Possibly. This was done by a professional firm. I don't know. But again, it would appear that, you know, and I know an industry that needs that for sure, oil and gas. I mean, that's industry standard. But, you know, have we adopted something that we're placing training and requirements on the staff that aren't actually necessary? Because, you know, like I say, both of those other CAO conversations said, I don't have a single office staff member that has fall protection. Why would they need it? Well, I don't know.
So quick question, so if this is, as you said, more industry written with hard hat training and fall protection training and whatever, how did this end up here? Is that like, that's like, did they come to you and present the health and safety manual?
Councillor Smith's still
No, sorry.
This was put forward a motion without it being brought to council, going ahead with the manual. It was approved after the fact.
So I can highlight some of those things in the, you know, because it like we've kind of agreed here, this, you know, for a manual of this size and scope, it appears to have been pretty quick. You know, and to Councillor Smith's point, it was, you know, WCB did issue us a notice that we needed to rewrite our health and safety manual. We had one. You know, I don't know if they were asking us to go to this extent and something this monumental, but nevertheless, that's what we got. But now the question still remains, though, is it the right thing for the municipality going forward? Can we work with this? Because once the health and safety manual is adopted, it basically becomes binding on the municipality. So I mean, one of the recommendations in here is even that we have a health and safety committee that, the way we read it, consists of 6 individuals. 4 members and then a director, or a chairperson and an alternate chairperson. Well, we've only got 9 staff. So, you know.
If we don't include the fire department.
Right, if we don't include, so the fire department was a WCB directive. So WCB moved the goalpost on us and said, your fire department, we're classifying them as employees. Which from what I understand is partly what triggered the necessity for this, for a new manual, because our old manual didn't address that. So it wasn't comprehensive enough. But, you know, did we actually go from, okay, WCB moved the goalpost, so maybe we didn't have something that was comprehensive enough. But did we go from here way out to here, and now we have something that's more geared to a 200-person organization?
Exactly.
Councilor Swift?
I would like to make the motion that the CAO look at the two alternatives. Would it be less financial burden to get it from another municipality or to work on it, whatever the less, because it takes a lot of time and you are busy, and you know what I mean, we have to incorporate not just the dollar signs, but your time involved in doing this manual. I'd like to make that motion that you look at those two options and bring it back to
Yeah,
us.
thanks, Councilor Smith. And I think, you know, secondary to that, just for the record too, we gotta
Do we
make
have
sure.
a seconder?
Oh,
There's a
Thank
second. All right.
you know, we have to make sure that we have a manual, because of the requirements of the municipality, once we implement it, we have to make sure that we have a manual that sets out standards we can actually adopt operationally, reasonably. Because at the end of the day, we can't spend our entire day, you know, massaging health. I mean, a health and safety manual is meant to be operationally workable.
Yes.
And if you have staff that spend more time doing work in a day, or more time doing safety forms in a day than actually doing work, that doesn't work for you. So, well, yeah, we appreciate that, Councilor Smith, I'll bring that back.
All right, so we got a motion on the table, it's been made and seconded. Do we have anybody opposed to, or I guess, all in favor of moving forward Councilor Smith's motion? There we go.
I have just quick question about CAO. These Dalhousie University certificates that you receive, when were they completed? Just lately? Or these new ones?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Smith. The human resources one was just recently. When I had come to the village of Poos, I already had 2 of the certificates. So I only needed 2 more courses to complete that third human resources one. So that was done over about the last year.
Okay, so you've completed those, let's say, in the last 6 months?
Yes. I'd have to go back
And the
check.
village paid for them?
Yeah, as part of the staff.
Okay,
So the
I'm
village
just
paid for 2
being
of them.
transparent here?
Yep.
Okay, that's.
As part of the staff training budget that came into there. So.
Okay,
All right, that's all GAO has. We'll move on to item 12.2, action items. Anything that is arising from this that we need to address?
any highlights?
And that letter that we approved earlier for the side, or for the crosswalk, that comes back to addressing one of the action items to the top.
Yeah, so what we do, just for maybe the benefit of the new members, we try and highlight everything that comes out of the council meetings on the action items. Because we do have a running list. Tonight's is fairly short, but I think last council meeting there was 21 action items that
30.
came out of the action.
30.
30?
Yes.
So, you know, we want to make sure that we're making sure that the direction of council is getting done. So sometimes this can get quite long, but yeah, as they get crossed off and approved by council, we basically remove them from the list to run tallies.
All right, cool. All right, brings us to 12.3, capital and special projects.
No, carry on.
All right, council calendar, 12.4. Nothing really coming up, so I did, yeah. Alright, that brings us to councilor reports, and if we got nothing else, okay, Councilor Hubert, do you have anything to report?
I just want to submit this report from the Pooskookie Museum for their year. It's a written report from, I can't even think anymore, less he did want me to read it out. I can't even see it, everything's blurred and blurred. But
I'll
just like
attach
you
it
to
to the
know that
minutes.
I got it. Okay, adding it in.
All right, and that's gonna go to corporate officer, and is she able to email that to us, or?
I can email it to you. It'll also be in the minutes.
Yeah, it'll be.
Oh, yeah, someone will get that way too. All right, Councillor Smith.
I have a regional district meeting tomorrow, and I also want to bring up with this floods down south, those people in Merritt, Hope. Now, they got stranded and then they were told to evacuate very short notice. What about these seniors that don't have a vehicle or don't have, a family can't get in and move them? What I'm asking for is, do we have a protocol in our emergency system that people with disabilities or seniors, if we can have a registry here? We had the heat wave coming in June, July. Nobody went around and checked on these seniors, and when they're hot, they're not gonna leave their house. So they could be there hyperventilating, not needing water, but we need to be proactive. And now I'm thinking with these floods, there's many people that live in Poos here that don't drive. You know what I mean? Our community, we need to put something in place, and I don't want this really brushed off. I really want us to look at this thoroughly. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So I can actually answer your first question when it comes to the seniors and that kind of stuff. Actually, what happens is in the state of emergency, if seniors need to get evacuated, that decision gets made by emergency manager of BC will make that decision with the EOC from the regional district. And they'll actually designate assets, so be it search and rescue or the fire departments, to actually go and deliver evacuation notices and to assist with evacuating those people. So down south right now, I used to do swiftwater teams and search and rescue teams quite regularly, working with the fire department, delivering those evacuation notices, and then following up and assisting anybody that needs to be evacuated. I had actually sent an email out to council, actually went to council here a couple of weeks back, suggesting that we look into our future planning for a reception center for the heat wave that they're calling for again this summer, where they're suspected to come. A lot of this ties back into our emergency management planning for the village, and my understanding that with talking with Chris is that's something that we can bring up or we can explore more when it comes to our capital planning for the next 5 years. And it's actually something I've been working on in the background, and I'm actually looking at bringing forward some suggestions on that as well.
Well, I agree, but you know what I mean?
So currently, right now, the way it works is the owners of the facility would have a list of everybody that's in the facility, and if
But
they need
nobody went around
evacuation,
and
they
checked
would
on
request
these
it.
people during the heat wave. There was people here who has air conditioning in their house. I don't. You know, nobody thought to go and check on these seniors. I'm just putting it out there that we need to look at things. I know that search and rescue, but we need to have it on paper, black and white, not.
But
Yeah,
then
when it
if-
comes to wellness checks, there might be some legal issues you'd have to check with the RCMP exactly, but a lot of that would be wellness checks, and that does fall under the jurisdiction of the RCMP to do the wellness checks, and they have to be requested. So it might be
Exactly,
something
but
that's,
if we had a register here,
and that's the thing is, if it's a volunteer register, how do we know we've got everybody? Right, so that's it creates a bigger, it sounds like it should be just a simple thing, but it's part of a web of a bigger network that I think as a community we have to address as a whole and review our emergency management planning for when we get these things like the heat waves that, hey, so we designate the fire department to go and knock and check on our seniors that have say we register or whatever the process is to go and check on them, but there has to be an agreement there ahead of time and some pre-planning and which again is going to cost us some money and time to have a professional come in and review those plans to make sure that we're hitting all of these points. In my, I guess part of my day job is I deal with this kind of stuff for similar stuff on a regular basis with my other volunteer organizations, and it always sounds easy from the outside looking in, but when you're on the inside, there's a process that needs to be followed and some policy and procedure that has to be developed and put into place for it. Due to liability issues and safety issues, mainly for the responders, and also to make sure that there's a systematic approach to it so nothing gets missed.
so you're saying that I'm blowing hot air to bring this
No,
up?
it's a great point to bring up, and it's something that I think we should definitely look at. planning for when we look at doing our capital budget planning for the next 5 years, is to actually address this so that we can allocate proper funds and the proper attention it deserves. Is kind of where I'm at on it.
What would the liability be when they claim their homeowner's grant over 65 or disability? That you have that information, they put their phone number, their address on there.
It's a confidentiality thing.
Well, yes.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's no disability portion to the homeowner grant, Councillor Smith. It's either, homeowner.
There's seniors.
It's age based. There's no qualification to property taxes based on a disability. We don't collect that information.
So
So it's age based. So over 65 is a certain rate, but there's no rate to say, somebody who's got a disability.
But it's also a community preparedness program that the provincial government puts out. It's a voluntary community preparedness program, and if you're interested in that, come see me afterwards or talk to me afterwards. I will put you in contact with a young lady that actually has training in that and developing those. And it's done on a volunteer basis within communities, and I can put you in contact with somebody that can answer your questions much better than I can on that if you're interested, because it is something that it's a lot of communities do it on a volunteer basis, where they have volunteers throughout the community. They say, okay, in the event of a heat wave or a natural disaster, we're going to check on these people. Here's the processes that we're going to follow.
You don't want to pick people based on their age, because then you're just being ageist.
Volunteers.
That's the next thing.
Volunteers again. Okay, okay, thank you.
But yeah, I can definitely give you that information afterwards. All right, is that everything, Councillor Smith?
Yes.
All right, hopefully I answered your question. All right, Councillor Beach.
Tis me. All right. Well, my library board meeting was supposed to be tomorrow, but it has been canceled, so I'm not going. But I did reach out to Courtney and kind of check in with her. So at the last meeting, which I'm so sorry I haven't brought this up, I was waiting to get more information about it. She had mentioned that she was looking into member recruitment within our municipality, or if we could go outside of our municipality. She can, according to, it's a very fancy name, but it's somebody within the municipality's government of public library services, who states that actually, as long as if the council is okay with adopting that, she could go outside of the municipality. I know from the 7 years I was on the board, it is almost impossible to find library board members. We're now getting
How many do you need?
She needs a minimum. They had to change the quorum. I think now it's at 4, and we're just meeting the minimum. And one of them is like, he's like 19. And he's going to the
I can talk to people. I know one off the top of my head that would sit on the library board.
Yeah,
Because
because
the residents.
perfect. And, it's definitely residents first. But if she's not able to get anybody within the community to bring forth that interest, then it gives her the option of looking in the surrounding area as well. I do know that, it's to the point now where we're like getting old Puskupi students that are like 18, 19 and trying to get them onto the library board, just trying to get those numbers back up.
I would like to keep it as residents.
Okay.
That's my personal as a resident.
Yeah, well,
Council discuss.
I sent an email to everybody about it with the information that she received from the lady with the municipal public libraries governance of blah, blah, blah. So that is in your emails. Please look on it, and we'll definitely continue to discuss it and stuff. And other than that, everything is going hunky-dory. She didn't really have much to report, which was the other reason why the meeting was canceled.
Are they getting people going to the library because of COVID, or is the numbers down, or is it impacted the library usage?
Well, the biggest thing is, as I said in the last meeting, Courtney had just started getting to the point where she was able to start putting on Lego Club again and Minecraft Club again, and getting people back in and doing things to redraw in the public, and then the new COVID orders were put out. So now we have moved a bit more online stuff, which we've seen a huge.
The pumpkin thing was awesome.
The pumpkin thing was awesome, yeah. The whole Halloween pumpkin carving thing was great. We saw a huge turnout and a lot of community engagement. And so we are definitely seeing a lot in that way. It definitely seems like a lot of members are doing more of the online stuff, but she is still getting, you know, she's still getting families and kids coming in. We do have quite a few community members within Puskupi that are homeschooled. I don't know if a lot of you know that, but we do have quite a few large families that are all homeschooled, and they rely on our library a lot to, those are like their family outings kind of a deal. They take out books for part of their learning, and so she is still having, you know, a lot of members coming in. We still have the students of the school going in after school using the computers, getting out books. When we have clubs, there's definitely more engagement in that aspect, but I know summer reading program, that went really, really well as well, so she's still trucking along and making it work, that's for sure. She's working her butt off, I'll give her that, yeah.
Oh, great, thank you for that. Alrighty, and for my report, so for Remembrance Day, I was honored to have the privilege to lay the wreath at the Legion. They had a small outside service. It was really awesome, actually. Some local kids had made some small wreaths themselves, handmade wreaths, and came and laid those on the cenotaph, so that was really great to see that engagement from our younger members in our community. You just hear it all the way across the audience. There's, you know, maybe about a dozen people there spaced outside. And you see when the kids came up, everyone was like, yeah, right on, you know. So it was really good to see the young residents boost come out and do that. Yeah, Ken Drover delivered a short spoke briefly. Because Corey wasn't available this year due to medical circumstances. But yeah, no, it was a good evening. Good visit with a couple of the Legion members afterwards, and yeah, like I said, I was very honored to be able to do that, and yeah.
So the Legion event, I was informed it was a closed event, and then I found out that there was public there, and so I did have people contact me and say, why weren't you there? And I was like, well, I was told it was a closed event, and we were unable to go, yet I had members in the public personally calling me and reaching out on Facebook, quite upset that we weren't there. Was it a closed event?
So it was a closed event. All we did was a wreath laying, and just Ken Drover came up and spoke a little bit. What it was is there's people that just showed up because we were outside. Right, so we were outside,
okay,
and you know everyone was kind of spaced out apart and outside. You know, just a ceremonial thing. But yeah, then there's people that just showed up. But
yeah, because I was.
And it was in Dawson, right?
No, it was here.
It was here.
Yeah, I was at the Legion here in Puskupi that we laid the.
I know.
Then you weren't doing it.
Yes.
Yeah, and when I contacted them, they said that it was just a small private get together. That basically it was just Legion members and a couple others.
Because when I questioned him,
other
he
people
said,
just showed up, but. No, everybody had kept their masks on. Everyone was social distanced, and it was a very low key. It's not like other years, because right now the Legion is actually, you know, their bars actually closed. Right?
Yeah, because I said my phone was ringing by 1, and I was like, it was a closed event. That's why none of us could go. We had to choose one person. Councillor Whittle was the acting mayor at the time. He was the one who went, and everybody, like, I had people going like, I can't believe that nobody was there. And it was a closed event that we were told.
The thing is, though, if they did it as an open public event, then it brings in all the COVID restrictions. So with having it a closed private event and people randomly showing up, it was one of those things that.
Well, had I known the option to randomly show up had been there, I would have randomly been walking by and gone in.
And hopefully for next year, you know, they're able to get back to our normal routine.
I was definitely sad to have not gone, so.
Yeah, and then the only other thing that was brought up to me that night is I believe the Puskupi Legion is coming up on 95 years that they've been in the community now. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was kind of an interesting thing to be able to learn that from a couple of their members. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for my report. Alrighty, so I guess that brings us to item 15.
We don't have nothing to rise and report.
Alrighty, so that brings us to 16.
That's Marlene's girl.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Perfect.
Fair enough.